My name is Myra Whitmore. I'm 34, a cardiology resident, and a single mom to 3-year-old twins. 2 months ago, I was on a gurney in the ER, bleeding internally after a car crash. My fingers shook as I called my parents. I just needed someone to stay with Lily and Lucas for a few hours while surgeons tried to keep me alive. Instead, my phone buzzed with a message in the family group chat. "You've always been a nuisance and a burden. We have Taylor Swift tickets with Vanessa tonight. We've had this planned for months." Figure it out yourself, so I did. From that hospital bed, I hired an emergency nanny service, agreed to triple rates, and made a decision I should have made years before. I cut my parents off. No more mortgage payments, no more health insurance, no more one-time bailouts. 8 years of quiet financial support ended in a few clicks. 2 weeks later, there was a knock at my door. Before I tell you who was standing there and what happened next, pause for a second. If this story speaks to you, hit like and subscribe only if you actually want more. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I really do read those. Now let me rewind to how all of this began. Growing up in the Carver household, I learned early that love wasn't shared, it was ranked. At the top sat my older sister, Vanessa. 3 years ahead of me, she was effortlessly stunning, charismatic, the kind of person who made a room brighten just by walking into it. My parents glowed around her. When she announced she wanted to be a fashion designer, my mother cried from pride. My father called her our little visionary. When I said I wanted to be a doctor, Dad nodded once and said, "That's practical." That was it, not inspirational, not impressive, practical. I told myself it was fine, someone had to be the sensible one. I dove into school, buried myself in textbooks, hit every mark. 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of med school, then residency in cardiology at a top hospital. The day I graduated medical school should have felt monumental. Instead, my parents showed up 2 hours late. "Sorry, sweetheart," my mother said, eyes avoiding mine. Vanessa had an emergency meeting with an investor. We had to drop her off. No flowers, no dinner. Just a rushed photo in the parking lot before they sped back, so Vanessa could have emotional support after her meeting. 3 years earlier, for Vanessa's first fashion show, it had been a different universe. The whole family flew to New York, 5-star hotel, front row seats. My dad put up 17 Facebook posts about his brilliant girl. She got a Manhattan runway, I got asphalt and a half-hearted "congrats, honey." I rationalized it. Fashion is cutthroat. She needed a cheer squad. Medicine is stable. I could stand on my own. What I didn't realize was that their favoritism wasn't just about attention, it was about money. And I was the one bankrolling it. It began 8 years ago, right after med school. My dad called one evening, voice tight. "Myra, we're in a bit of a bind. The mortgage is due and things are really tight. Could you help us out just this once, just this once?" I wired $2,400 that night without hesitating. They were my parents. Helping them was reflex. Just this once quietly became every month. Then it wasn't just the mortgage. When Dad's company dropped their health coverage, I started paying their $800 monthly insurance premium. Then came the emergencies, car repairs, a leaking roof, a furnace that died in winter. Every time I stepped in, I never said no. When I got pregnant with the twins and their father bolted in my 5th month, I still turned to them. I called from the hospital after a frightening bleeding episode, shaking and alone. "Oh honey, we wish we could come," my mother said, "but Vanessa is so stressed after her show in Milan, she really needs us right now." They didn't show up, not for the pregnancy scare. Not for the birth, not for the first sleep-deprived month when I was breastfeeding 2 newborns while cramming for my boards, but the transfers never stopped. $2,400 on the 1st of each month. $800 on the 15th, extra whenever they asked. For reasons I couldn't quite explain, I kept a spreadsheet. 8 years of payments added up to roughly $320,000. Line after line of money going one way. I never asked for thanks, I never expected a celebration, but I also never thought the people I'd carried for nearly a decade would call me a burden. That reckoning was coming, I just didn't know how soon. The accident was on a Tuesday after a 16-hour shift. I was exhausted but not asleep at the wheel. The light turned green. I drove into the intersection. I never saw the truck. It blew the red light doing about 50, slammed into my driver's side. Glass exploded, metal shrieked, the world spun and vanished. I came back to myself in an ambulance, pain ripping through my abdomen. A familiar voice cut through the noise. "Myra, Myra, can you hear me? Doctor." Marcus Smith, one of our ER physicians, was leaning over me. We'd worked together for 2 years. "Marcus, My voice sounded wrong, thin. What's happening? You were in a car accident. You've probably got internal bleeding. We're taking you straight to surgery. The word surgery sliced through my fog. My kids, my hand shot out, gripping his sleeve. Lily and Lucas. They're with the babysitter. She leaves at 8. Marcus checked his watch. It's 7:15, 45 minutes. I had 45 minutes to find someone to take care of my children while surgeons opened me up. My hands shook as I fumbled my phone out. Blood smeared the screen while I pulled up my parents' number. It rang 4 times. We're about to head out, Myra, my father answered, already impatient. Make it quick, Dad, I need help, I gasped. Car accident, I'm on my way to the hospital. They think I need surgery. I need you and Mom to watch the twins for just a few hours. Silence. Hold on, he said, and the line went muffled. I heard my mother's irritated tone, Vanessa laughing in the background, then it went quiet. A second later, my phone buzzed, family group chat. From my mother, Myra, you've always been a nuisance and a burden. We have Taylor Swift tickets with Vanessa tonight. We've been planning this for months. Figure it out yourself. I read it once. Twice, 3 times, the words stayed the same. Then my father chimed in, you're a doctor. You're used to hospitals. Don't make this into more than it is. Vanessa added a single laughing emoji. That was the depth of my worth to them, an eye roll and a joke while I bled in the back of an ambulance. I felt Marcus watching me. I hadn't realized he could see my screen until he asked, carefully, what did they say? I couldn't answer. Something inside me broke, and it wasn't just my spleen. I need a phone, I whispered. With internet, mine's dying. He handed me his without hesitation. I searched for emergency nanny services, found one that advertised 24/7 availability, and called. My voice snapped into professional mode. I explained the situation in short sentences. Yes, I'd pay triple. Yes, I'd connect them to my current sitter for instructions. Yes, I authorized immediate payment. 4 minutes later, it was arranged. When I returned Marcus's phone, he was still watching me. Can you screenshot those messages? I said, holding up my own phone. Before this dies, he nodded. Yeah. I've got it. By the time the ambulance pulled into the bay, the physical pain had blurred into something else entirely. From that hospital bed, IV in my arm, fear sitting heavy in my chest, I made the easiest decision of my life. The surgery lasted 4 hours. Ruptured spleen, internal bleeding. They told me later that a few more minutes and I might not have made it. I spent 5 days in the hospital, IV fluids, morphine, endless vital checks, not a single call from my parents. No text, no visit, nothing. The emergency nanny service cost a fortune, but it was worth every dollar. They coordinated flawlessly with my regular sitter, fed and bathed the twins, sent me daily photos. Strangers stepped up where my own family had refused. On day 3, I asked the nurse for my laptop. Are you sure? She asked. You should be resting. I need to deal with something, I said. My hands were steady as I logged into my bank. 8 years of auto payments lined the screen, $2,400 on the 1st, $800 on the 15th, additional transfers sprinkled throughout. I canceled every single one. Then I opened my contacts and blocked my father, my mother, and Vanessa. No tears, no drama, no second thoughts. It felt like putting down a backpack so heavy I'd forgotten what it was like to stand without it. Marcus stopped by that afternoon, as he had every day, bringing coffee and quiet companionship. How are you doing? He asked. For the first time in 8 years, I answered honestly, better. He didn't press. I knew my parents would notice when the next payment did arrive. I knew there would be outrage, there would be stories. I was ready, or I thought I was. I didn't expect what came instead. 2 weeks after surgery, I was home, moving slowly, still sore but alive. It was a Saturday morning and I was making pancakes, Lily and Lucas's weekend favorite. Butter and maple syrup filled the kitchen. Lucas stacked toy blocks on the floor. Lily helped him in the way only toddlers can, by knocking them over and laughing. Then came a sharp knock at the door, 3 quick raps. My heart jumped. If it was my parents, I wasn't ready. I didn't know if I'd ever be ready. I checked the peephole and froze. A tall man in his 70s stood on my porch, silver hair neatly combed, blue eyes razor-sharp and familiar. His posture still carried the weight of decades on the federal bench. Grandpa Thomas. I hadn't seen him in nearly 3 years. My parents always had a reason, too busy, too far, too complicated. I opened the door and he pulled me into a hug so firm it tugged at my stitches. Myra, he said, voice rough. Let me look at you. He stepped back, his gaze scanning my face and dropping to the spot where my hand rested over my abdomen. I know everything, he said quietly. Eleanor told me, my mother's younger sister, Aunt Eleanor, had always been the one person in my extended family willing to say out loud that something was wrong. "Grandpa, I don't," he held up a hand. "You don't owe me an explanation, but I do need you to come somewhere." He reached into his jacket and took out a cream-colored envelope, thick and formal. Inside was an invitation to his 70th birthday party the following Saturday. "The whole family will be there," he said. His gaze met mine. "And there are things I intend to address." He sat at my kitchen table, watching Lily and Lucas with a softened expression. They deflocked to him instantly, dragging over toys, demanding attention like he'd always been there. He gave it without hesitation. "They look just like you at that age," he said. Same stubborn chin. I set down 2 mugs of coffee and sat across from him. "How did you find out about the accident?" I asked. "About everything. Eleanor called me the night it happened," he said, wrapping his hands around his mug. "She heard through one of your cousins. When she told me what your parents did," he stopped, jaw tightening. "I've watched this for years, Myra," he went on. "How Helen and Richard treat you compared to Vanessa." I'm old, not oblivious. I stared into my coffee. I thought maybe I was exaggerating, making it bigger in my head than it was. "You weren't," he said. The authority in his voice was different from my father's. It was the voice of a man who had spent 40 years dissecting lies and half-truths. I was a federal judge for 4 decades. "I know favoritism when I see it. I know exploitation." He leaned forward. "Do you still have records of the money you've sent them?" I nodded. "Every transfer." 8 years worth. "Good." He sat back. "I want you to put it all together. Dates, amounts, what each payment was for." "A summary." "Why?" "Because at my birthday party, with the entire family present, I want the facts laid out. Not as an attack, not as revenge, just the truth. And in my experience, the truth speaks for itself." My hands shook around the warm ceramic. "What if everyone ends up hating me? The people who matter won't," he said simply. "And the ones who do never deserved you." The next 2 weeks blurred. I printed every bank statement, every confirmation email. I organized 8 years of transactions chronologically, slid them into a plain manila folder. Seeing it all together was nauseating. Month after month, year after year, my income diverted to their life. 3 days before the party, Aunt Eleanor came over. She was 55, sharp-witted, and proudly the family's black sheep for refusing to pretend things were fine. She flipped through the folder, her face darkening as she added figures on her phone. "Roughly $360,000, she said flatly. "Myra, do you understand what this represents?" "I know." My voice was thin. "It's more than most people earn in 7 years. She set the folder down. "And they called you a burden." I braced my hands on the counter. "I don't want to blow up the family, I just want them to see it." "To admit it happened." "You're not destroying anything," she said, squeezing my shoulder. "You're just refusing to maintain the lie. They built their comfort on your silence." "You're allowed to stop." I nodded, but dread coiled in my stomach. That night a text came from a cousin I barely knew. "Heard you and your parents aren't speaking. Vanessa's telling everyone you've been unstable since the accident. Just thought you should know." They were already rewriting the story before I even arrived, painting me as unhinged. Laying the groundwork, I hadn't wanted a battle, but one was clearly waiting. Grandpa's house was a classic colonial on 3 manicured acres, white columns, wraparound porch, old money quiet. I pulled into the circular drive, fingers tight on the steering wheel. Lily and Lucas chattered in the back about balloons they could see through the windows. The driveway and street were packed with more than 40 cars. Everyone was here. I wore a simple navy dress, professional, restrained. I wasn't there to put on a show, I was there to tell the truth. The folder sat like a brick in my bag. Inside, waiters drifted through the crowd with champagne. A string quartet played softly. Crystal gleamed under chandelier light. I saw them instantly. My parents stood by the fireplace. Dad in his best suit, looking composed and respectable. Mom in a cream dress, laughing at something someone said. At the same moment, they spotted me. My mother's laughter died. Dad's expression hardened. For a few seconds, we just stared at each other across the room. Then Vanessa swept in. She floated toward me in a designer dress that probably cost more than a month of my student loan payments. Her smile was flawless. Her eyes were ice. "Oh, Myra," she said, kissing the air beside my cheek. "You made it. We heard about your accident. Nothing major, right?" "A ruptured spleen and internal bleeding," I replied evenly. "I almost died." Her smile faltered. "Mom said it was just a little fender bender." "Mom wasn't there," I said, shifting Lucas on my hip. "None of you were." For a heartbeat, something cracked in her composure. Then she recovered, patting my arm. "Well, you look fine now." That's what matters. She drifted away, but I could feel the storm clouds gathering. The first real strike came about 30 minutes in. I was pouring fruit punch for the twins when I heard Vanessa's voice carry, just a little too loud, across the room. I'm honestly so worried about Myra, she told a group of aunts and cousins near the dessert table. The accident really messed her up. She's been saying the strangest things. Cut Mom and Dad off for no reason. I kept my back turned, handing Lucas his cup. My mother joined in, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. We've tried everything, calls, texts, she won't answer. I think she's having some sort of breakdown. Poor thing, someone murmured. She's always been the sensitive one, Vanessa added. Remember how dramatic she was as a teenager. Being a single mom must have finally pushed her past her limit. I could feel eyes on me, pitying, speculative. Annalena appeared at my side, voice low and furious. They've been priming everyone all week, phoning around, planting seeds. They know something's coming. I know, I said. I see it. Across the room, Grandpa watched from his armchair, whiskey in hand. Our eyes met. He gave me the smallest nod. I'm okay, I told Alina. Let them talk. A few minutes later, someone tapped a glass. The room quieted. The quartet stopped. Grandpa stood. Even at 70, he commanded a room the way he must have commanded a courtroom. Calm, unhurried, absolutely in control. Before we get back to celebrating, he began, his voice carrying easily, there are a few things I'd like to address. The air shifted. Everyone felt it. Let me pause you here. Have you ever had someone twist your reality, call you crazy or ungrateful the moment you finally drew a line? If you have, type truth in the comments or share your story if you're comfortable. And if you're still with me, hit like, it helps more people find this. All right, back to the party. Before Grandpa could continue, my father stepped forward. Dad, wait, he said, voice controlled but strained. Before you say anything, there's something the family should hear. Grandpa raised one eyebrow. Richard, my father turned to the room, wearing his most concerned parent face. As you may have heard, my daughter Myra has been struggling, he began. He gestured toward me with a pained smile. After her accident, she's been confused, distant. She's completely cut her mother and me out of her life. My mother moved to his side, clutching that handkerchief. We've only ever wanted what's best for her, she said, voice trembling, but she's been saying horrible things about us, that we abandoned her, that we don't love her. The room was dead quiet. I felt dozens of eyes on me. We've tried to be patient, my father went on. It's been devastating. We gave that girl everything. Everything, Vanessa echoed from across the room. She's even been telling people we refused to help her the night of her accident, which is absolutely untrue. There must have been some misunderstanding. Someone near me murmured, oh, those poor parents. An aunt I barely knew approached. Honey, is everything okay? Your parents are so worried. I opened my mouth, but the words tangled. Then Grandpa's voice cut across the room like a judge's gavel. Are you finished, Richard? He hadn't raised his voice, but there was steel under it. My father's confident posture sagged a little. I just thought the family should know, he said weakly. The family, Grandpa replied, should know the truth, and that is exactly what we're going to talk about. He moved to the center of the room, his walk slow, deliberate. I've heard your concerns, Richard. Helen, Vanessa, he said. You've painted a picture of a troubled young woman who has inexplicably turned on her loving parents. He let that hang in the air. Now I'd like to ask a few questions. My father shifted. Dad, this really isn't. This, Grandpa said calmly, is precisely the place. Families deserve to know what's happening inside them. He turned fully toward my father. Richard, a simple question. Who has been paying the mortgage on your house for the last 8 years? Color drained from my father's face. What? Your mortgage, Grandpa repeated. $2,400 a month, 96 months. Who paid it? We, my father glanced at my mother. We cover our own mortgage. Do you? Grandpa slid a folder from his jacket, my folder. Because right here I have complete records of bank transfers from Myra's account to your mortgage lender, every month for 8 consecutive years. A ripple of whispers moved through the room. That's not how it sounds, my mother stammered. Myra offered to help. We never asked. I'm not accusing you of holding a gun to her head, Grandpa said evenly. I'm simply stating facts. He opened the folder. Let's look at the numbers. Across the room, Vanessa had gone pale. My father's fists were clenched. My mother looked like she might collapse. Mortgage, Grandpa read, $2,400 a month, over 8 years, $230,400. He looked up. That's the house Richard and Helen live in, the one they've always implied they paid for. Someone gasped. Health insurance premiums, Grandpa continued, $800 a month for the same period, $76,800. When Richard lost his company coverage, Myra picked it up. Another page. Car repairs, home maintenance, various emergencies, about $45,000. Another. And finally, direct financial support for Vanessa's fashion projects, $12,000. He closed the folder. Total approximately $364,200. The silence had weight. For those who need context, Aunt Alina added, stepping forward, that's more than most people earn in 7 years of full-time work. Myra did that while completing medical training and raising twins alone. She offered, my mother croaked. We never forced, no one used the word force, Grandpa said. What I am curious about is this, in those 8 years, how many times did you say thank you? They said nothing. How many times did you visit her in the hospital after she nearly lost the twins? He asked. How many nights did you show up to help a single mother who was also a resident? Still nothing. How many times did you check if she was okay? Grandpa finished. My mother's tears turned from graceful to ragged. We thought she was fine, my father said hollowly. She never asked for anything. She always managed. She managed, Grandpa repeated softly, because she had no choice, because you taught her that her needs did not matter. An uncle in the back shook his head. Jesus, Richard. $360,000 and you called her a burden. My father flinched. And there's one more thing, Grandpa said. He took out his phone and put on reading glasses. 2 months ago, Myra was critically injured in a car accident. She was being rushed to surgery. Her children were at home with a sitter who was about to leave. She called her parents for help. He paused, eyes on my mother and father. This is the text message she received in response from Helen. I'll read it exactly as written. He cleared his throat. Myra, you've always been a nuisance and a burden. We have Taylor Swift tickets with Vanessa tonight. We've been planning this for months. Figure it out yourself. The room broke. Oh my God, someone breathed. You're twisting it, Vanessa blurted. That's out of context. There is no context, Aunt Alina snapped. That makes that acceptable. We didn't know it was serious, my father shouted, voice shaking. Did you ask? Grandpa asked quietly. Did you call her back? Did you go to the hospital? The silence that followed answered for them. For anyone wondering, Grandpa said, the answers are no, no, and no. A distant cousin physically stepped away from my parents, disgust etched on her face. Others followed. I didn't mean it that way, my mother sobbed. I was frustrated. I didn't think. No, Grandpa said, you didn't think your daughter might die. Because you've never thought about her at all. He turned back to the room. I'm not asking anyone to judge, he said. I'm only presenting facts. What you do with them is up to you. Then he looked at me, his eyes unexpectedly gentle. Myra, would you like to say anything? I hadn't planned to speak. My intention had been to let the documents and my grandfather do the talking, to stand quietly while the story finally aligned with reality. But as I looked at my sobbing mother, my stunned father, Vanessa's shattered facade, I realized I did have something to say. I handed Lucas to Aunt Alina and stepped forward. I didn't come here to get revenge, I began. My voice was steadier than I felt. I came because Grandpa asked me to. And because for 34 years I've lived inside a version of this family that wasn't real. I looked at my parents. In that version, I was the strong one, the dependable one. The one who didn't need anything. I believed you when you said Vanessa's world was harder, that she needed more support. I believed you when you told me I could handle things alone. So I tried to be what you needed, practical, useful. A tear slid down my cheek. I let it. But that night in the ambulance, bleeding and terrified, something finally clicked. I realized I wasn't strong to you. I was convenient. I wasn't reliable. I was exploitable. I swallowed. And no matter how much I gave, money, time, silence, you were never going to see me the way you see her. A few relatives edged closer. An aunt squeezed my arm. A cousin nodded through his own tears. Myra, my father started. I'm not finished, I said quietly. He fell silent. I don't hate you, I said, but I can't pretend this is normal anymore. I can't keep paying for a love that should have been free. An uncle turned to my father. All this time we thought you were the ones helping her. You were living off her and treating her like she was nothing. The air was shifting, I could feel it. So what now? My father demanded, desperate. You've humiliated us in front of everyone. Does that make you happy? I shook my head. None of this makes me happy, I said, but I'm not sorry either. This isn't about shaming you, it's about being honest. For the first time in 8 years, everyone here knows what's actually been happening. Not your polished version, not Vanessa's spin, the truth. Vanessa tried again. This is insane. You're acting like we're monsters, we're your family, families help each other. You're right, I said, turning to her. Families do help each other, so where were you when I was pregnant and alone? Where were you when I was studying for my boards with 2 newborns? Where were you when I was lying in an ambulance, not sure if I'd see my kids again? She had no answer. I looked back at my parents. From now on, I won't be sending any more money, I said, not because I can't, but because financial help is supposed to be a gift, not an obligation. And in a healthy family, support goes both ways. My mother reached out a shaking hand. Myra, please, I'm also not saying I'll never speak to you again, I cut in, but I need real distance. Not a few weeks followed by you pretending none of this happened. I need you to sit with what you've done, to face it. And if someday you can truly acknowledge it, without excuses, without rewriting history, maybe we can start to rebuild something. I took Luca's back from Aunt Alina and kissed the top of his head. But I'm not holding my breath. A great-aunt came over and clasped my hands in her wrinkled ones. I'm so sorry, dear, I had no idea. We always thought you were the one who had it easiest. I know, I said, that's how it was supposed to look. Let me check in with you again. That moment, the first time I really chose myself, did it hit something in you? A lot of us are taught that family automatically means sacrifice, no matter the cost, but boundaries aren't betrayal. Saying no isn't selfish. If you agree, type boundaries in the comments, and if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Now hear us what happened after that party. My parents slipped out early, no one stopped them, no one hugged them goodbye. My father walked my mother to the car while she cried into his shoulder. Vanessa followed, eyes on the floor, avoiding everyone. When the door shut behind them, the remaining silence felt clean, like the air after a storm. Over the next few days, my phone buzzed nonstop. Cousins I barely knew reached out to apologize. Aunts and uncles who'd bought into the perfect family story were suddenly re-examining everything. I always thought you were the difficult one, a cousin named Rachel texted. Vanessa made it sound like you just cut everyone off out of nowhere. I'm so sorry, I believed her. The family group chat, the same one that had carried that nuisance and burden text, went quiet, then it vanished completely. More tangibly, my parents started finding doors closed. When my cousin Michael turned 43 weeks later, they weren't on the guest list. When Aunt Alina hosted Easter brunch, their names weren't included. No big declaration, no official exile. People simply stopped inviting them. 2 weeks after the party, my mother called from a new number. I let it roll to voicemail. Myra, please, she said, we need to talk. This has gotten out of hand. Your father is heartbroken. I'm heartbroken. Can't we just move past this? I listened once, then deleted it. I'd learned something important. Forgiveness isn't a magic reset button. It's not something you hand over so other people can feel better. It's something you choose when it brings you peace. I wasn't there yet. The financial fallout was just beginning. 3 months later, Aunt Alina called. They're selling the house, she said. I set my mug down. What? Your parents? The house went on the market last week. Word is they can't keep up with the mortgage. I searched myself for satisfaction, guilt, vindication. What I found was mostly exhaustion. Where will they go? I asked. Frank's letting them use his guest house for now, she said, referring to one of my uncles. On the condition they get jobs, real jobs. No more waiting for someone else to swoop in and cover the bills. Jobs, I repeated. Dad had taken early retirement at 55. Mom had never worked outside the home. For years their income had effectively been mine. What about Vanessa? I asked. Can't she help them? Alina laughed, short and humorless. Vanessa's barely keeping herself afloat. Word about the party spread. Someone who knows someone in fashion heard the story. She lost a major contract. Last I heard, she's waitressing part-time. I looked out at Lily and Lucas playing in the yard, chalk dust on their little hands. I don't want them to suffer, I said quietly. I know you don't, Alina said. That's who you are, but they didn't suffer for 8 years because you cushioned everything. They didn't have to grow, they didn't have to face themselves. You stepping back wasn't cruel, it was necessary. I knew she was right. That night I opened my budgeting sheet. The $3,200 a month I used to send to my parents now went into a college fund for my kids. I set up automatic contributions. They would never have to choose between their dreams and someone else's survival the way I had. That felt like enough justice for me. 6 months after the party, nearly a year after the crash, my phone lit up with an unknown number as I tucked the twins into bed. Normally, I'd ignore it. That night I answered. Myra, a voice said. Softer than I remembered, it's Vanessa, please don't hang up. I sat down on the edge of my bed. I'm listening. I'm sorry, she blurted. The words came out cracked. I'm so sorry. For how I treated you, for what I said, for laughing at that text when you were, her voice broke. When you were dying, I laughed. What kind of person does that? I let the silence stretch. And the money, she said finally. Not all of it, but some. I knew Mom and Dad were struggling. I assumed they were scraping by somehow. I didn't know it was you for 8 years. How did I not know? Did you ever ask? I said. Silence then. No, because I didn't want to know. I liked being the favorite. I liked that everything was easy. She gave a humorless little laugh. Nothing's easy anymore. Turns out in my industry your reputation matters. I heard about the contract, I said. Yeah, word travels fast, she said. I'm not calling to ask for anything. Not money, not even forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. What I did, what Mom and Dad did, I see all of it. I took a slow breath. Then start from there, I said. Stand on your own feet, be better. I'm trying, she whispered. Good, I said. When I hung up for the first time in a long time, I felt something light and unfamiliar, hope. 6 months after that call, 1 year after the accident that rewrote my life, I stood in my new apartment, watching the sunset paint the walls. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a small kitchen. 5 minutes from the hospital, in a good school district. Most importantly, it was mine. No secret mortgage checks going to my parents' lender. No health insurance premiums for people who called me a burden. Just rent, utilities, groceries, and a college fund growing quietly in the background. Lily and Lucas were at Grandpa's for the afternoon. Over the past year, he'd become a steady presence in our lives. Every Sunday, he picked them up for adventures, the zoo, the park, ice cream I pretended not to notice from the photos. They're good kids, he told me once. You're raising them right. From him, that meant more than any compliment I'd ever gotten. Aunt Alina had become more than the outspoken aunt. She was a friend. We had dinner together twice a month. She walked me through the emotional whiplash, setting boundaries, staying firm, learning how not to apologize for existing. You know what I admire most about you, she said recently. You could have turned bitter, a lot of people would have, you had every reason. What good would that do? I answered. Bitterness is like drinking poison and hoping someone else gets sick. As for my parents, we still hadn't spoken directly. I heard snippets through relatives. They were still at Uncle Frank's. My father had taken a part-time job at a hardware store. My mother did bookkeeping for a church. They weren't thriving, but they were surviving. For the first time in a very long time, that was their responsibility, not mine. Sometimes I wondered if they thought about me, if they missed the version of me who never said no. If they regretted anything, then I reminded myself those were not my questions to solve. I'd carried their weight for 34 years. I was done. If you're still here, I want to leave you with something. Not advice, I'm not a therapist, just a lesson I learned the painful way. For 34 years, I believed love was something you earned. That if I gave enough, did enough, needed nothing, one day the people who were supposed to love me would finally see me. I was wrong. Love isn't a reward for usefulness. It's not a payment you receive after enough sacrifice. You can't buy, beg, or overperform your way into a love that should have been offered freely from the start. The family I have now, Grandpa, Aunt Alina, friends like Marcus who showed up when my own parents didn't, they don't care what I provide. They care who I am, that's the difference. It took almost dying on an operating table to see it. I don't know what the future holds with my parents. Maybe one day they'll face what they've done, really face it. Maybe they'll reach out with genuine remorse and a willingness to rebuild something honest. If that happens, I'll consider it, but I won't hang my life on that possibility. I won't organize my choices around a hope that might never materialize. My life is mine now. My time, my energy, my money, my love. And if the people who raised you call your self-respect betrayal, maybe they never deserved your loyalty in the first place. If you're carrying a burden that was never yours, it is okay to set it down. It is okay to choose yourself. That doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't make you ungrateful. It doesn't make you a burden. It makes you free. If this story resonated with you, hit like and subscribe. It really does help. I want to hear your experiences. Have you ever had to draw a hard boundary with family? How did it change you? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more stories about finding your voice and standing up for yourself, check out the video linked in the description. Until next time, take care of yourself. You really do deserve it.